Okay, you be ready for this last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, what are you going to do? How are you going to deal with this? I'm going to.
You said goodness gracious.
Oh.
Mine went to goodness gracious.
How am I gonna do it? I'm gonna just kind of recap for people just tuning in, like a little recap, and then talk about why I think Schindler was a great person and things like that. You know, my commentary.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I usually do.
And you can do that for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I could do that for 20.
Well, just give me the best of your the first 10 minutes. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing all right. You're doing an excellent job.
Thanks.
Yeah, for the topic, because everything that you say about it is something that's new to me. I never saw the movie Schindler's List. I've heard of it.
You should watch it.
Yeah, I didn't know anything.
It was
about
on the other day.
It was? Well, you should be able to give us some information in reference to what you saw the other day on it.
Oh, I didn't watch it because I've already seen it. But.
Well, you that's got 10 minutes now. And you're doing an excellent job so far. But it's always that last 10 minutes that determines the quality of a show. It's the last 10 minutes, and you keep on going in reference to that. Yeah, you've done an excellent job.
30.
This is my most difficult show for the day. I guess it goes automatic. See, this is the most difficult show for me today.
Why?
Determine whether or not you can deal with this. And you can. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Alana McLaughlin, and she's talking about the life and times of Oskar Schindler. And she's given us some excellent information. And Alana, let's see if we can pick up where we left off for this final segment to sort of wrap Schindler up in reference to some of the other individuals that you think play a significant role in reference to the Holocaust, as well as some of the things. For example, I think you've mentioned a lot about Anne Frank and some of the other individuals who were important in terms of the Holocaust. And so let's do it from that perspective.
All right, so if you're just tuning in the last segment that we just finished, I basically talked about who Oskar Schindler was. He was a Nazi, and he did save thousands of Jews by pulling them into his labor camp where they didn't really do labor. They made bullets, which were really bullets that Oskar bought with the money that he gained from various things. But basically, he bought these bullets, you know, sold them off thinking that they were Jewish made, but really they weren't. They were made somewhere out of country, I believe. But basically, when the war was over, you know, Schindler, he at first fled the country thinking that he was going to be charged and killed for crimes against humanity. But he wasn't. And so he then came to New York where he stayed with relatives. You know, a lot of people that he saved would send in fruit baskets, gifts, and foods, and that's what he lived off of, considering the fact that he was poor. And then when that started to kind of decrease, you know, he just kind of lived off of family members until his death. And then I mentioned something that not a lot of people know. If you've ever seen the movie Schindler's List, you know, in the end where you see a bunch of people in a line, and it's this long lines. You know, there's children, elderly people, you know, middle-aged, and stuff like that. And so in the beginning, you're probably thinking, you know, what are all these people in this line for? And they're dressed kind of 80s clothes, like around the time that Schindler's List came out. And so all these people are lined up, and then they all have stones in their hands. And so you're just like, what is happening? So they all go up and they place a stone on this little marker. And then you realize that the marker is Schindler's tomb. And so they're all putting these stones on there, and there are just not thousands, but there are just so many stones, not just on it, but surrounding his grave. And these are all stones from the people that he saved. Because at the time he saved, what, 3,000 people? Think of those people, at least 100 of them had children. they had children, and they had children, and the line goes on and on. So just think of how many lives Schindler has saved. I mean, back then it was thousands, but just think now, it could probably be, if not already millions, near millions. And he just did so many great things for so many people, and you can't repay someone for saving your life. You know, you're in this thing called the life debt. And so basically they showed their gratitude by placing these stones on there. And I thought that was a beautiful part of Schindler's List that was very, very well persecuted. And that really brought me to tears. You know, I don't usually cry at movies, and that's why I was saying that it was so crazy for me to just sit there and just bawl my eyes out the whole movie.
And so in a real sense, Alana, I think we've talked about Anne Frank and Oskar Schindler and whatever. And so what you're saying is, in spite of all of the horrors of the Holocaust and the deprivation of the Jewish population and et cetera, there were efforts on the part of individuals like Anne Frank and Schindler to help alleviate some of the suffering. And it's important to recognize these individuals, because somehow we can get caught up in the horrors of the Holocaust and believe that everybody, all Nazis, were in favor of killing all the Jews and et cetera. And here you've got an example. Now it's only one example, and certainly that might not have been common among all of the Nazis and et cetera. But nevertheless, this was an individual who's worthy of being remembered in terms of having that kind of information, that kind of memory. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, and I think that nowadays we focus, like in schools, we teach about Adolf Hitler and Stalin and the bad part of, you know, European dictators and things like that, but we don't focus on the fact that through all this horror, there were little rays of light, like Oskar Schindler, who showed us that looks are deceiving. Because if you just looked at Oskar Schindler, you would think that he was a trigger-happy, money-craving, drunky Nazi. And that's basically what he was, but he wasn't, you know, trigger-happy.
That was his persona.
That was his persona. And that was his costume, because strip away all the things that you would see when he was out, you know, having parties and etc. There was a man on the inside. And at the end of the war, when he was freeing all his, you know, people before he fled, he cried. And he broke down and cried. And then, you know, a bunch of people were coming up and they were hugging him. And then somebody asked, well, why are you crying? And he said, because I didn't save enough people. And, you know, I'm tearing up now just thinking about that, because this man, so many people thought so low of him, yet he broke down and cried in front of thousands of people because he didn't feel that he had saved enough people. Tell me this. I mean, there were probably other Nazis, but what other Nazi can you name that broke down at the end of the war and cried because he didn't save enough people? And I just think that it takes a lot of courage to be able to just do something like that. He just, you know, threw his disguise off and just, you know, basically said it out that I am upset because I feel as if I didn't do enough. And they were like, you saved so many people, and, you know, and it's okay. And it was, because I don't think at the time he was thinking that, just think about the bloodlines that you're saving. Their ancestors, well, modern day people can always think back on their ancestors and just think, wow, you know, my ancestor was saved by Schindler. And so basically, that's another really gripping part of the movie that I cried at. And honestly, I just think that people, before judging, never judge a book by its cover, basically, because you don't know what's on the inside, and that's how Schindler basically got away with saving the Jews, because no one thought to really look at his personality. They just decided, you know, hey, he's a Nazi, he's automatically going to kill all the Jews.
And so in a real sense, these are some